Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of User Fresh Lettuce. I am your co-host, Rachel.
And I'm Delia.
And in this episode, we're going to be talking about being polite versus being honest and some of the sort of treachery of that whole thing. If you're not doing so already, please follow us on social media at YDFL Podcast. Also, you can listen to us on any of the major podcast platforms, including
iHeartRadio, Pandora. I'm like thinking about it. I'm like, wait,
Alexa!
iHeartRadio, Pandora, and you can ask Alexa. And also, we're trying to grow our following on YouTube. So if you haven't checked us out, we're actually on YouTube. So
Yes.
check out the fits, check out the mannerisms, the face, the looks,
the new space situation, the new studio.
I mean, we have a very beautiful backdrop with like a floor-to-ceiling glass, and you can see like the whole little situation city, but for some reason it's a little whited out, but you can still see us, and we are here to share the message either way. So like, follow, subscribe, share with your friends.
Sharing is caring.
And
Let's
add
go.
a comment.
All right, so here's the thing. You know, being polite versus being honest, let me tell you, this comes up a lot, and I'm going to go real deep with it real quick.
Let's talk
about
it.
There was an article that I read yesterday, and it was about women, and it had some video attached to it, but it was about women who have been essentially sexually assaulted.
Ooh.
But they couldn't classify it as that because the guy was kind of being very nice and putting on the pressure and being very nice, and she said no, and no, and it's our first date, and blah, blah, blah.
Just a tip.
But he's you know what I mean? But he was very persuasive, and it was like this whole thing, and then she just goes, okay, I don't want to make a big deal, let me just do it.
Oh, snap.
And so in the article, there was so many people that had supposedly chimed in or whatever.
Yeah.
Because it was something posted on social media. And it really got me thinking about this topic that we're going to do, because in relationships, we tend to lean towards, I don't want to ruffle feathers.
Okay.
And so what do? We just go for, let me just be polite about the situation.
Okay.
I don't want to ruffle feathers.
Okay.
I don't want to go to him.
When you say ruffle feathers, because see, like when we're doing this episode, so there's a part of me that was thinking like, being honest, like, that's not my favorite color, or like, I don't like that lipstick, versus actually going in a relationship or even being with your husband where he wants to have sex with you, and you're like not trying to ruffle feathers, and now it's like he's trying to do his thing, and you're like, well, I'm married to the guy, like I need to have sex with him. Are you talking about that specifically?
Well, I think just in general. I think it's always a situation where women are feeling like they have to put themselves in a position of, do I really want to, ruffle feathers?
Yeah.
And do I want to start an argument over this? Or do I just go, okay, forget it, and they're being polite?
I'm just not going to go there.
Okay, I'll give you another example for it. Okay, if you have a friend and her husband is like kind of hitting on you. Okay. You might be like, oh, ee-hee, ha-ha, ee-hee, ha-ha. Yeah. Because you'd rather be polite than to be honest and be like, no, that's some bull crap. You don't do that to my friend. You don't do that to me. It's almost like we don't speak up. There's like so many situations where we're like not speaking up and holding our ground. Yeah. And it's even in relationships too. So it's stuff that's happening outside of relationships.
No, I can see that. And I've seen that for sure, where the guy's like, hey, it's because the problem with her is that she doesn't do this and she doesn't do that. And is wanting to bash the wife that happens to be like my friend. And I'm like, but then as a woman listening, doing that with me. We're not doing this today.
It's almost like now we're just going to be polite and be like, oh, well, that sucks, or oh.
Like for me, sometimes like when it comes to being polite and then being honest and being polite, or just not wanting to do that, like I know that I have a really hard time. I go around the question, like if I don't like something, because, my personal style may be different from your personal style. And so if it doesn't look 100, I will say, can we let's try something different, like maybe a different pair of pants or maybe a different shirt. And, and the thing is that we as women, that's how we need to kind of show up for each other without being like, oh God, did you gain 10 pounds? Because there's that energy. And then there's like, I've seen you wear something different. There's this one shirt that you wore. It was really cute. And there's that energy, right? Like where you're politely telling her, hey, that's not like the best outfit. And it's not my favorite. Without you being like, oh my gosh, did you gain weight? Because you look like you gained 20 pounds. Yeah. And there are women and females that are just straight up. But it's like, it's not what you say ever. It's how you say it, like 100% of the time. So there's a little bit of that sometimes too.
So I feel like if we take it to the workplace, and you know, I've talked about this so many times. I've mentioned that I worked in mostly male-dominated industry of media and stuff like that. And what ends up happening is that so often, whether it's the clients, whether it's the boss, whatever it is, the co-workers, there's these comments being made. There's these little things that are happening. There's these derogatory, like they're trying it. You might be I've traveled a lot for business. You might be on a business trip, and they're like, hey, it's just you and I. Like, we should blah, 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 blah. And it's so easy, especially like in my personality, to kind of laugh things off.
Right.
And be like, oh, God, like, I don't take anything serious. But unfortunately, by doing that dude isn't going to learn. He doesn't learn anything. And also, he's not respecting you anymore because you're not willing to put like a hard line.
You know what's so funny? When I was, it was really young. I was in like 19, and I used to work for this company that did a lot of telemarketing. And one of the girls that worked at the telemarketing place, I guess, according to this guy, when he was trying to promote me, I figured out how he was promoting the people, by the way. Okay. And so he's like, you do realize that in order to get a promotion around here,
you gotta bust out the lotion.
You know, you gotta get under the desk. You know what I mean? Okay. And so I said, excuse me? He's like, yeah. He's like, well, how do you think so-and-so? By the way, so-and-so happened to become a friend of mine that was my age. Granted, I was not underage. I was 19 years old, so I was still within, I was an adult. Yeah, and so was she. And part of me was like, I couldn't picture her being that way. But then you hear the stories, especially like in Hollywood, right? Where, I was just watching the Marilyn Monroe.
The biopic.
And it shows that she's wiping her mouth off, like, because she went into the private room with the president of whatever company or whatever studio, and that's what she's doing. Or the U.S. Happy birthday, Mr. President. Yes. And so, and so you have to understand, like, what is it that you're kind of holding back? Is it like you're being polite? Is it because you don't want to say anything because you're not trying to ruffle feathers? Like, I don't know. There's so many layers to what we're speaking on. By the way,
there's so many layers. That's why it's so difficult.
Those girls got promoted, is what I'm saying. Yeah. I obviously didn't get promoted, by the way, but but I sure as hell wanted the raise. But I just didn't want to get promoted like that.
Not like that.
Not like that. No.
So I think that, as women, it is an important topic, even though we're all over the place with it, because there are so many layers to it. There are so many scenarios where we choose to be polite and not ruffle feathers instead of being honest. And it goes beyond telling our friend she looks fat in those jeans or whatever it is. Yeah. And it's really like if you are out in the world and like a man is hitting on you or making you feel uncomfortable, there's a thousand scenarios where you're just kind of going with the flow because you don't want to cause problems, but you're not standing to your integrity. And
exactly.
And I'm not saying go out there and be full on, Me Too movement and all this kind of stuff, because I don't really believe so much in that either.
No.
But I think that when it comes to standing our ground, it's a big deal. I'll give you an example how men do it. And you and I witnessed this with that phone call with you. The guy will, and I've seen this. The man will have his wife right there who catches him cheating with the other woman next to him. And he will be like, no, don't do that to her. And he will go and take care of the other girl.
Yeah.
With you, you got that phone call from that lady. I
wasn't with the dude at all. But
but you got a phone call that we posted, right, with that lady.
Yeah.
And that man is aware that she's getting a phone call from the partner or whatever. And he went out of his way to call Delia and make sure she understands and, we're good, right? Oh my God, I'm so sorry that happened. Why? At the end of the day, why is he so concerned about being polite and being liked instead of saying, you know what? I did the wrong thing. Obviously, I got caught. He didn't need to be calling Delia.
He needs to make it right with his fiance.
Yeah. And so often our partners are trying to be polite to the other person.
Right.
Instead of to us. So if a woman is hitting on your man, instead of telling her, I am not interested.
Yeah.
He's kind of going with the flow because he doesn't want to hurt her feelings and might even sleep with her.
To not hurt her feelings?
To not hurt her feelings.
Okay, so I'll hurt her somewhere else. I'm going to hurt you, but not like that.
You know what I mean? In order to just... I've just seen it. I'm trying my best to articulate it because I know you and I talked about this topic.
Yeah, no, totally. I know what you're saying. And in other words, you're too worried about hurting my feelings and, and being right with me versus,
your partner.
Being right with her. And, or being right with her to say, you know what? I don't want to be with you. I want to be a male whore. I want to go out there and I want to, stick it in whoever, like, I don't know, whatever it is, like, and you're so worried about her feelings that you're being polite and you're not actually taking the initiative to say, you know what, I've been married, because this guy was married before. I've been married, and you know what? It didn't work for me because I'm a fucker. Like, I love to have sex with everybody.
Yes.
And so I think it's better to just be so honest and be like, you know what? This is who I am, and this is how I'm showing up to the world. And we know this to be true because what? We are two women that are not bitter. We're better.
Yeah.
And we were both cheated on. And it's like, you know, I would have had more respect for you and appreciation for you to just be like, you know what? You're cool, but I'd rather go out in the world and just stick my, like, dipstick in anything that will allow me to. Rather than having us just be there and you're trying to be polite to say, well, it's because I have a family with her now and I don't want to hurt her feelings. And then later on, like, you know, 3-4 years later, you're like, dude, you could have just told me you don't want to be with me. That's okay. Like, I don't, you know,
like, I'll like, cry for a few days.
We're not gonna go cut our veins over it, but you know, be honest.
I think, you know, at the end of the day, if you imagine a world where everybody's really showing up authentically, you know, it would be kind of a little bit crazy compared to how it looks now. But I can tell you that if somebody came to me, like you said, is completely honest, then I get to make a very wise decision for myself. I get to sit there and go, this is who he is. This is what he's about.
I'm accepted.
I either am into it, or I'm just not, and let me make my moves. You make your move, and I make mine. But so often the guys are afraid to to show up authentically, right, in the relationship, and so they're tricking people into being with them, you know. And so it makes it really tough. And then in women in the world, we have so-and-so hitting on us, and we're like, hee, ha, ha. It doesn't teach anybody anything. You
just
know?
Be honest.
And I think if you could just hold your ground and just say, hey, I don't really appreciate that, or I don't think it's fair what you're doing to her. Right? It's not a good look.
No.
But no one's clapping back. No one's holding the line. No one is ruffling the feathers. Everybody's afraid of you know,
what will they say? How will they say it? Oh my gosh, I want her to like me, and then see. But a lot of the time we talk about this too. It's like they're with the wife or the fiance, and they obviously don't want to hurt her feelings, and they want to have her continue to think that they're going to plan this wedding, and they don't want to hurt those feelings. But then they're over here doing this, and they're not being honest with themselves to say, you know what? Though you're a cool woman and I like you, meaning his fiance or the wife, but I really want to do this. Like, I want to be single. I want to live life, and I want to enjoy that. And I think no one should bash that. If someone comes to me and says, you know what, you're cool, I like you, but I want to be free, I want to be single. And if I decide at that moment to be like, hey, I'm a cool girl, like, I'm cool with it, like, you can go do your thing, I go do my thing, and we connect whenever we connect, then that's on me. But when someone's, like, lying to you, and they're not coming authentic to you, that's such BS. Like, let me make that decision too. Don't be so selfish. Right?
And that's the thing, it feels like a trap, and I can tell you, there's a lot of women who said yes to an engagement by a man that they knew they didn't want to marry, that they did not see a future with. There's a lot of women that will see that thing through in the name of being polite instead of being honest, and they're going with the flow.
Well, it goes back to even being polite, right? With, like, you get pregnant, and then now you think that the right thing is to marry this person. And maybe, you got pregnant, and yes, it would be the right thing to do, but and you want to be polite to not say, I don't want to marry you, but I'll have your kid. It's that's such a catch-22 in a way, but, like, eventually it could lead into a divorce. Why? Because you didn't go in with the love. You did it because everyone's watching you and saying, like, this is the next thing you got to do. Now you're pregnant. Okay, well, now you got to get married because this is what comes next. And then all of a sudden you are in this dead-end relationship with someone that you don't see really a future with, but now you're, like, married, and you're like, well, now I gotta make this shit work. Excuse my language.
I can tell you, when it comes to that early in the relationship, it is better to be honest than to get stuck, because even if you're a nice person. Like I always say, I try to be nice. But at the end of the day, though, I also try to be very honest about with myself, by the way, to say, is this really what I want?
Right.
Granted, like I would like to get married. I'm open to the idea of getting married, but I'm not going to marry just anybody. I would have been married a long time ago.
Yeah.
And so at the end of the day, I've been so honest with myself. And then in turn, I'm pretty honest with the people. Like I don't waste my time.
Right.
So that goes into like, you and I talk about this. Guys who DM, guys who text that I know I don't have a future with that guy. This guy's not my type. I'm not interested.
Yeah.
And yet here's the he ha ha back and forth, this and that. Because why? Well, I don't want to be this rude woman who like doesn't respond. I had to learn to become that woman that doesn't respond. Like I'm not responsible for how he feels about that. And so it took me a long time. And Delia, I'm like, yeah, look at this person wrote that. And she's like, what'd you say? I'm like, oh, no, nothing. I haven't responded. And like, she's like, what? I'm like, I don't see anything with this person.
Yeah.
I don't feel the need to go, oh my God, you're so sweet. Thank you. Like, it's misleading for me to go and say, and keep that door open to him, right?
Yeah, of course.
So often as women, we don't want to ruffle those feathers though. We're like, no, he's a nice person. I'm just going to say hi back or whatever.
Yeah.
And so I'm not saying it's right or wrong.
Yeah.
But it's something that as women we do. And I had to actually train myself. When someone told me a while back, if you know that it's not through the street, why are you entertaining? Why are you giving that guy hope? And I'm like, I'm not giving him hope. Yeah, every time you respond.
He's giving himself hope.
They were like, every time you respond, you're giving him hope. And I'm like, oh. So it's like this learning thing, right, about your own personality to go, are you entertaining people that are not in line with where you look to go? That's number one. And number two, are you in a relationship and people are sort of violating the bounds of your relationship? And are you just kind of like, oh, I don't want to cause problems as his friend. I don't want to say anything. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think that's
and
what
I think
this
that's a little bit hard, right? But I think at the end of the day, it isn't always, like I said earlier, it's not what you say, it's how you say it. So you could be polite and tell someone no, thank you, F you, or F off, without actually even having those words come out of your mouth, ever. And you can politely say to someone, hey, those pants, I really think I've seen you wear something different. Like you looked a little
They're
different.
They're
not as flattering.
Yeah.
Instead of saying, you've gained like 10 pounds and those pants are not it.
Yeah.
So I think that with anything that you do, it's just a matter of coming out and not being rude about it. And if someone is saying some, like for me, if someone's disrespecting me, I have no issue like going from 0 to BITC real quick. And I'm for the most part, in my opinion, I feel like I'm pretty nice. But if someone's being disrespectful, it's like, if you feel that you have the right to disrespect me, then I have the right to get back at your level. And that might be a little different because then maybe that's like try me energy that we talk about.
It is. And I think that when you really think about, and not trying to get so deep, but you go back to like the sexual assault stuff or even like the molestation situations, it's always these people that are very like, they just continue lure you in. And what ends up happening is, as females, we just don't have the mechanisms to put a stop to it, to yell, to slap, to make it clear that this is a no.
Because usually this is from personal experience, and this is, me being like super TMI, and I'm very open about this. What happens is that these people violate your trust, and you're at the time, maybe like you're way younger, so you're naive, you're new to the world, they're taking that innocence away from you. So it's really hard for you to be like this young child that knows their power of the no versus someone coming in and slithering their way in, because they don't do it the first time, they don't do it the second time, unless it's like this massive this
they
rapist
kind of put their
dude.
Wall.
It's this rapist dude that's going around and he does that's different. But usually the people that you let in your home, they're like, oh, when I was
grooming.
At the cupcake store, honey, and I got some cupcakes for you. And so that's a little different, because it's really difficult for you to understand and know to say no to that, because there's that innocence of it. And I think you get to a certain age where you see that someone's being a little bit more, I don't know, predatorial, like where they're actually like you are they are seeking you. And the
number of women that I have known and met that have